The Last Resort by Stephen Meehan.
A scouting squadron responsible for finding safety found it moored to the coast like a forgotten legend, scarred and silent, yet still afloat. A seemingly operable battleship, untouched by conflict or the passage of time. They hoped the vessel would be their chance to escape the dying world. Although it appeared safe, the fear of humanity's bane terrorized the remnants of civilization. After key sections of the craft were cleared, the leaders dispatched the remaining engineers to determine if their last hope could be their salvation. While other teams cleared non-essential chambers, the engineers determined the vessel was not only seaworthy, but capable of surviving the ocean's capricious nature. During this examination, the modest remnants of humanity huddled near the vessel as they eagerly awaited the all-clear from each of the inspection teams. While one response was still outstanding, their hopes swelled. Yet a handful knew that without perfection, despair would overwhelm everyone, so tension lingered. Ray's team was the lone holdout still combing through the haggard battleship. However, one final room needed to be scrutinized, and it was the ship's galley. When the trio neared the galley's entrance, Ray glanced at Charles and Kevin and waited for their silent nods. Once given, Ray pointed at the door and Charles rushed to obey the silent order. As soon as one hand touched the metal, Charles rubbed his lucky coin positioned beneath his glove. A second later, he cracked the door before backing away, allowing Ray to kick it open and race inside. Ray, accustomed to the darkness, noticed a slight movement in the galley's rear, barely a shadow in the ship's endless dark. However, the sudden sour scent of copper and ozone filled Ray's nose, and he knew they discovered their bane. Instinctively, the grizzled Marine raised his rifle to his shoulder and controlled his breathing as he squared the rifle's sights upon that motion before he squeezed the trigger. A bolt of pale blue energy shot from his rifle, bathing the room in light for just an instant. The hint of illumination highlighted the full scale of the galley's infestation. As the room overflowed with humanity's destroyers, Ray's mind snapped back to his first encounter with them. It came from a time when everyone believed they'd be victorious. Despite being a creation of humanity, this menace promptly demonstrated they possessed all the power. Even though their creation stemmed from an attempt to cure a wide array of diseases, it didn't matter. What people originally assumed about the hulking and misshapen creatures proved to be their undoing. Instead, they were dangerously fast and exceptionally strong. Thankfully, their rifles were just the weapons needed to put these monsters down. As the bolt from Ray's rifle raced through the galley, the Marine watched as it impacted the beast that had exposed the infestation. The pulse of light faded as the creature fell to the floor. However, Ray heard the scuttling from the rest of the creatures intensify. Ray resumed firing as he pressed his back to the wall.
"We found the nest. Get in and light them up."
Without argument, Charles and Kevin drew their rifles to their shoulders and fired as quickly as they could while moving through the doorway. Bolt after bolt of pale blue light streaked across the galley, creating an eerie mix of light and shadow. In the flickering light, Ray noted several creatures charging forward from the shadows to escape the confined galley. However, every attempt to cross the chamber ended in a burst of pale blue light. The sheer number of creatures forced each of the Marines to deplete their rifle's power cell. When their rifles ran dry, each of them ejected the spent cell before inserting a fresh one. The trio kept firing until they were down to their last cell. Once they all stopped shooting, Ray pulled out a small sphere from his belt and pressed its single button. He released it and counted to 2 before tossing it into the center of the galley. The sphere hung in midair, glowing like a miniaturized sun. When the illumination filled the galley, it revealed everything, as clearly as if they were standing in full sunlight. Instantly, the trio of Marines dropped to the floor and waited. After waiting for what felt like ages, Ray rose and inched towards the nearest counter as he scanned the immediate vicinity. When he didn't see more of the monsters, he glanced at his companions. Ray raised his rifle and stepped around the counter, just as a creature across the galley lunged at him. Ray squeezed his trigger, and the bolt raced across the galley and struck the monster in its chest. The lone creature fell forward, knocking an item from the table and flinging it at Ray. When it struck the floor, Ray bent down, lifted the object, and placed it on the counter.
Ray, what was that?
Kevin asked, his voice a half-whisper, as his grip tightened around his rifle.
That's considered a straggler.
Charles tapped his lucky coin before slinging his rifle over his shoulder.
I'm capable of recognizing these monsters.
Kevin glared at Charles as he thrust a finger at the object on the counter.
I'm asking about whatever that thing was.
Ray lifted the object above his head and waved it about as he turned toward Kevin.
It's nothing more than a whisk.
Charles pulled the rifle off his shoulder.
Are you serious?
Kevin nudged Charles's arm, nodding at the hanging utensils.
In the next firefight, aim for the spatula.
Ray stared at the whisk, then at the bodies. Somewhere on the coast, kids were playing in the sand. Families waited by fires. This ship wasn't just a mass of metal. It was their future. After scanning the carnage one last time, Ray tuned his radio to the global channel.
There's plenty of cleanup in our future, yet she's ours, and it's what's giving us a chance to escape this dying rock.
With that, our story concludes. I hope you've enjoyed today's reprieve from your daily grind. If you like the vibe, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because every bit helps get this channel spread to those who require a momentary chance to unwind. I'll see you for the next tale, my friends.